Well, hi everyone, and greetings from Northern Michigan. This is Bob the Science Guy, and unfortunately, today you're going to get another one of my rants. My rant has to do with this cartoon right here. If they wanted everybody to get the shot, they should have just sent it out in the mail on good faith and had us return our paperwork completed, just like mail-in ballots. Now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and silliness like this is being put out in social media. You know, we just completed a single term of what is probably the worst leadership that we have ever had in our history as a nation. It was so bad, our leader was impeached twice, only to be saved by his political cronies. Now, when he lost the election, he is such a narcissist, he refused to accept the results because how could he possibly have lost an election? And he went out to look for things to blame, and he settled on voter fraud, specifically fraud with mail-in ballots. And his cronies and minions proceeded to parrot this unjustified claim of voter fraud. I think that's what we're seeing right here. Now, this gentleman was elected to office by playing on the fears of our lesser angels, immigrants, big business, big government. His entire campaign was based on, well, your situation in life is horrible, but really, it's not your fault. It's their fault. So let me lead you and we'll make it right. You know, normally that would be a problem, but we'd get through it. We've gotten through a lot worse. We've been through a civil war. We had our Capitol burned. We've had political scandals. However, during this term, we were hit with a worldwide pandemic of COVID-19. At first, he denied the existence. Then he tried to minimize it. To appeal for popularity, he tried to make it a freedom issue. He went against science and tried to make it into a political and a freedom issue. Hence, you see cartoons like this appearing in social media. This is trying to link the COVID vaccine to imaginary voter fraud with mail-in ballots. It's mocking the entire process of not only our public health system, but our elections. Now, normally, I'd just ignore something like this, but I think I need to point out who posted this on their public Facebook page, Mr. Rob Skiba. Now, Rob Skiba, as you know, is a very prominent flat earth fraudster and a charlatan who has taken a very major anti-vax status. There's Rob and his lovely wife there. Now, had he just stayed in the flat earth realm, he wouldn't have caused any problems. Nobody really cares about the flat earth. It doesn't impact our lives. It's an interesting thing to debate, if you want to call it a debate, but it really is pretty harmless. Anti-vax and vaccine hesitancy is not harmless. And as you see right here, this status on September 28th, and I've also seen one from October 9th, but that's not on his public Facebook page. Mr. Skiba is currently on a ventilator in critical condition due to COVID. Now, while it would be very easy to sit down and talk about karma right now, the only thing that I can tell you is that we don't penalize people for making bad decisions and doing dumb things. We deal with it. Mr. Skiba, I sincerely hope that you have a speedy recovery, not only for your sake, but for the sake of your family. Fortunately, it seems like you've got access to some very good and aggressive health care, and quite frankly, I hope it works. The fact that you've been on a ventilator for weeks, as this post would allude to, it concerns me. But I've seen people pull through, and I hope that you're going to be the next one that does. But as a physician, I think it's time for me to address vaccine hesitancy and the myths and misinformation going around COVID. So let's cue up the music and get going. Now, when I was planning this particular episode, at first I thought that what I was going to do was go into the CDC data. I would talk about vaccine efficacy. I would talk about the safety of the vaccines, the vaccine event reporting system, and see what kind of things are being reported for the COVID vaccine. However, I don't think that I'm going to do that. I think instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the words of the family. Now, while flat Earth is essentially harmless, it is a mild amusement to some of us that, do understand Earth science. It is kind of an interesting way to work on your debate skills and brush up on your basic sciences. However, as I said, it's basically harmless. The anti-vax movement and vaccine hesitancy is anything but harmless. And we really need to look at some of the stuff that's being put out there. Rob Skiba is some sort of a fundamentalist, and he has been putting out videos saying the vaccines and masks are the mark of Satan or something or other. I want to review some of the posts that he's put up, and I want to see how his family is reacting now, because I think it's very telling. I found a rather interesting website. And that's this one right here. This is called sorryantivaxxer.com. And one of its lead articles is right here on Mr. Rob Skiba. Now, Mr. Skiba is a younger man than I am. He's 52. And he's from the state of Texas. Now, Texas has a lot of wonderful things going for it. Right now, good judgment on the part of its government is not one of them. They've not only essentially eliminated a woman's ability to terminate a pregnancy in the state and put a bounty of $10,000 or something on anybody that turns a woman that got an abortion in. That's kind of a weird way to do health care. And it kind of misses the entire point of legalized abortions, and that is we don't want young women dying unnecessarily. They've also put out regulations against any sort of prevention of COVID, such as mask or vaccine mandates. This is just poor judgment, and I think that we're seeing the results of that now. So Mr. Skiba has been putting out posts for quite some time. He is a conspiratorial charlatan who's known for his self-promotion in the flat Earth community. He's also apparently an evangelical Christian who is not quiet about any of his beliefs and his judgments of others. So let's go down and just have a look at a couple of the things that he's put out. Now here's his comment on a release from Pfizer where they say that the Pfizer vaccination may give you some protection against the Delta and other variants. You have to be completely insane. Okay, why, Mr. Skiba? Do you have any data to back that up? Do you have any medical training or training in immunology or virology that entitles you to have an opinion on this matter? I don't think so. Here's another cartoon that he put up. This is suggesting that simply worrying about the vaccines are causing you to be sick or somehow harmful to you. And he also likens to taking the vaccination as to sticking a bicycle pump in the spokes of your own bicycle while it's going down the road. Again, this is an anti-vax stance that has no basis in reality. There is no modification of your DNA. Now, when the anti-vax movement started, one of the things that they hit on was the smallpox vaccination, and that was that if you took this cowpox vaccine, you'd turn into a cow. This is just a recooked version of the same theme, and that is that since the COVID vaccination works with messenger RNA, it'll change what makes you you. There's nothing further from the truth. Now here's Rob's understanding of what vaccines actually do. Rather than actually talk to somebody that knows something about them, me for example, or his family doctor, he chooses to simply make something up about how he thinks the vaccine might work, and then he ascribes an evil intent to it. This is an interesting cartoon that he put up here, and that is that if the vaccine was safe and worked, why would you need a lottery or public service announcements or an ad campaign to promote it? Well, because there are people like you out there, Rob. People like you who don't understand how the vaccine works and don't trust your physicians. The idea behind incentives and public service messages is to try and educate you for one and motivate you for two. Because you're not concerned about those around you. You're not concerned about your own family. You're not concerned about yourself. But we're concerned about you. We would like to at least make you an educated individual, and barring that, well, perhaps the chance of winning $1 million may encourage you to do your civic responsibility and get vaccinated. Well, here we have a nice little image of a well-known politician, and they're trying to equate the incentives with luring children into vans with candy. That's despicable, Rob. That's not very Christian of you. Here is the rehashing of the Nuremberg codes. The Nuremberg codes have absolutely nothing to do with vaccinations. Period. End of sentence. Full stop. Not even worth addressing any further because I've already made a video or two on this. Now here Rob Skiba is reposting something from another anti-vaxxer, talking about the fact that the government is trying to impress upon people that this is a serious problem. That's one of the reasons they make the statistics available. And you can go see these from the primary source. There's the CDC website. You can find out about vaccines. You can find out about vaccine side effects and efficacy. You can see the current caseload in the last 10 days and from the start of the pandemic. You can actually do your own research. And if you know what you're looking at, you can draw some good conclusions. When I originally started talking about the vaccine hesitant, I said that there were 4 groups, all right? You have the conspiratorial thinkers. Okay, well, Rob certainly is in that category. You have the natural healing believers, and Rob seems to be promoting that as well. You have the people that just simply are contrarian and mistrust everybody. Well, that's definitely Rob. And the last group was the miscellaneous, and one of the members of the miscellaneous group are certain fundamentalist religious beliefs. For example, there are religious organizations that don't believe in getting blood transfusions. Now, that's based on their interpretation of the Bible, and that interpretation is not shared by others. But that's what they believe, and that's what they do. Now, one thing that I also said was that the vaccine hesitant seem to be better educated about vaccinations than the people that actually trust their physicians and take their advice. The problem that you run into with that is if you don't have the training to interpret what you see, you're simply memorizing something that you saw in an article or on a YouTube channel. But if you don't understand what they're talking about, you can't properly interpret it. And quite frankly, we're constantly seeing nonsense about mercury in vaccines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are over 80 chemicals and 4 known carcinogens in coffee, yet we all still have a cup in the morning. It's a risk to benefit ratio that you have to be able to evaluate. And if you don't have the training, you should get the advice of somebody like me, for example, that does. Now, a while ago, another physician and I evaluated the mockumentary Plandemic, which suggested that COVID was a government plot to do whatever it is they thought the government was doing. And one of the points that they made was these healing bacteria that are in beach sand. And Rob is just basically going off on this variant right now. He thinks that it's all vitamin D and fresh air and sunshine, and that'll keep you healthy. Well, no. The thing that gets you sick in pandemics is exposure to other people that are sick. And if you are not vaccinated or don't take precautions such as wearing masks and social distancing, you're going to get sick too. Now, will everybody get sick? No. Will everybody that gets a vaccination not get COVID? No. The idea is to reduce your risk of contracting it if you're exposed to it. Masks do that. Social distancing does that. Vaccination most definitely does that. So don't get your medical advice from somebody that doesn't even understand how pandemics work. You know, I don't even know how to address this one. This is promoting the idea that this pandemic is somehow a government population control, and Rob is concerned that if we don't do something to oppose it, either he or the person viewing this will be dead. I don't think that that's going to turn out the way that he thought it would. I'm fully vaccinated and healthy. You're on a vent in an ICU because you're not vaccinated and you got the disease that I got vaccinated against in January. Well, I can tell you one thing. He's really appreciating his ventilator right now. He's really appreciating the medications that are supporting his heart and lungs. And while I don't wish him ill, and I do wish him a speedy recovery, if nothing else for the sake of his family, there is such a thing in this world as karma, Rob. The problem that you run into is you adopted the position that it's your body, your choice, unless of course you're a woman. But it's not just you that you're affecting, Rob. You're flying a vent right now, Chief. But you know something? Let's go ahead and have a look and see what your wife has to say. Now, Rob, if you recover, I hope you have a chance to go back through all of these posts that your wife put out. I want you to sit down and I want you to read the pain that she is expressing in these posts. How much she loves you, how she watched you unconscious for 21 days on a ventilator due to COVID, something you could have prevented with a simple vaccination. I want you to see how she's been at your bedside for 12 hours a day for days, how she's followed all of your ups and downs and died a little bit every time you had a setback. And then, Rob, I know you don't think of other people, or else you would have gotten your vaccination, but actively promoting anti-vax propaganda, I want you to think about the other families that have a loved one on a vent. They're on a vent because they didn't get a vaccine because they listened to you instead of their own doctors. You're a very selfish man, Mr. Skiba. And quite frankly, although you and I both served in the military and we promoted the idea of free speech, there's a difference between what we can do and what we should do. And your anti-vax nonsense not only hurt you, it hurt your family, and it hurt countless other families that listen to you. So stop it. This is Bob the Science Guy signing out from Northern Michigan. Stay healthy out there, folks, and if you haven't been vaccinated yet, as my family and I have, please go out and get it. Thank you.